The following is an XT5 production.
The search for suspects in the Tylenol killings moves to New York. The Premier announces a multi-million-dollar plan for widows and widowers. Work for welfare called slave labor by provincial social workers. And the Cardinals fly high as the baseball season is over. Newsday with Alec Moyer.
Good evening. It's 7 degrees and the forecast for tomorrow, sunny. Our top story today, Prime Minister Trudeau completed his three-part message to the country, continuing the theme of his previous speeches. He said the country must pull together to be prepared to help Canada when the recession ends. He says the government's restraint program is showing results, but there are other things that Canadians can do.
Those of you who are skeptical, I ask you to look again at what your fellow Canadians are doing and see for yourselves. Those of you who can help to make it happen, I ask you to seek out the ways, and there are ways. Those of you employers, for instance, who think you must eliminate jobs to cut costs, why don't you tell your employees what the choices are and ask them the choices they would make? You may be surprised. Workers all over the country have been prepared to share work to save other workers' jobs and to make some sacrifice to save the companies that employ them. Those of you bankers who see farmers and small businessmen struggling to keep the land alive and the doors open for a better time, ask yourselves, what will be served by a bailiff's padlock? Why don't you take a chance on a Canadian? You may be surprised. Those of you union leaders who fear for the future of organized labor, ask yourselves if the working man will be better served by his leaders sitting on the sidelines or by playing a central role in overcoming a national crisis. Why don't you ask your members? You may be surprised. But these ways are not confined to the powerful. Each of you can play a role by helping a friend or a neighbor, by speaking up when people around you hurt others by what they do, or fail to help, but by what they do not do. Those are the ways in which you can help staunch the wounds of recession, restore our country's capacity to compete with the best, and clear the way to the next steps towards recovery.
Well, Newsday's financial analyst David Pescud has been watching the Prime Minister's talks now for 3 days, and he joins our reporter Bill Lang to take a look at what the Prime Minister really told us. Bill?
Thanks, Alec. Dave, we had the Prime Minister open 2 days ago by telling us as individual Canadians that our productivity was down and we are to blame because we can't compete on foreign markets because we simply aren't putting out. Is this true?
Well, it's kind of interesting he would mention the statistics of 12% is our inflation rate. There's two major components of that percent that you should be aware of. Their energy costs, which are a direct result of his national energy program, and they're continuing to cost this country and will continue to make this situation worse. So that's one factor. The second is housing costs. Why? Because of high interest rates, which is a direct government policy for which he is responsible. The higher interest rates create high mortgage costs, which cause high housing costs. Another graph he didn't mention, though, is the interest rate comparisons between these countries. He did mention comparing inflation rates. For instance, Japan and Germany have interest rates of 5 and 7% prime rate versus ours of 14 and higher.
Are those interest rates controlled by their governments?
Oh, fairly much so, yes.
Comparable to Canada.
That's
roughly.
right.
While we were all villains 2 days ago, tonight we are all working together with Mr. Trudeau and the federal government to overcome adversity and go on to greater glory in the 21st century. 3 months ago we had Alan McEachen and Mr. Pepin tell us that recession was good because high unemployment would defeat inflation.
Well, yesterday's good guys, I guess, are today's bad guys. also notice as a result of that, the deficit has risen from 12 billion several months ago to 23 to 26 billion today.
Was Mr. Trudeau trying to co-opt us as Canadians and put the responsibility for today's economic situation on the back of individual workers?
Gee, it sure looks that way to me as an individual. His 6 and 5 seems to be a selling program at this point.
Thanks very much, Dave. Alec?
Okay, Bill Lang in discussion with Newsday's financial analyst David Pescud. And we have a question based on the Prime Minister's 3-segment address to the nation. Our question to you this evening is, was the time allowed the Prime Minister on the CBC well spent? That's our question. Now, we invite you to call us here at 469-2321 with your reply, yes or no, to that particular question. We have people standing by until 7 o'clock to take your calls, only till 7 o'clock. So bear that in mind. The question was, the time allowed the Prime Minister on the CBC well spent? We want to hear from you. Well, the Bank of Canada rate is at its lowest level in more than 2 years. However, today's drop was less than 1/10 of a point. It went to 11.53% from 11.62%. Now, the small decline is not expected to prompt the major chartered banks to lower their lending rates. There's a call for major changes in the Bank of Canada's monetary policy. The Canadian Institute of Economic Policy, a group of Canadian economists, says the central bank's high interest rate policy must be abandoned, and soon. Otherwise, it says, the country will tumble into a major depression. Spokesman Abraham Rothstein says he suspects American rates will swing upward again. And when they do, he says the Bank of Canada should lower the gap between Canadian and U.S. rates and even operate below the American rates. Rothstein says the conjunction of a drop in U.S. interest rates and the American elections is, and we quote, one of the great coincidences of the decade. The work stoppage at British Columbia ports is causing serious problems for the grain industry. And Premier Peter Loheed said today he will send Ottawa a note urging a quick end to the dispute. The Canadian Pacific and Canadian National Railways have already stopped shipping grain to the West Coast. In Saskatchewan, there is a fight to have more of Canada's grain used at home. The Saskatchewan Federation of Labour took a break from its annual meeting today to protest a decision by McDonald's restaurants to use an American bakery to supply its hamburger buns.
The SFL convention took a break today and went to McDonald's. Not to eat, but to talk others out of eating. They joined McGavin's bakery workers who've been picketing for the last 2 weeks. 17 bakery workers in Regina were laid off when McDonald's started buying its hamburger buns in the United States instead of from McGavin's. The people on this line say it's adding insult to injury that it should happen in Saskatchewan.
Well, I'm on the picket line because we have the incredible situation here where we're in a province in Saskatchewan that grows 2/3 of the wheat that's grown in Canada, and we're importing bread from the United States. I find that just utterly incredible.
Well, I'm on the picket line because I believe that Canadian jobs are being lost by going out of the country for goods that we produce here right in Saskatchewan. We write not just the buns, which will lose workers' jobs, but that's our wheat that's going into it, our dairy products that are going into it.
They managed to turn away some who came to eat, but others decided lunch was more important.
Another bottle of extra-strength Tylenol containing cyanide-laden capsules has been found by the authorities in Chicago. A police spokesman says the bottle was found by the authorities as they were checking bottles ordered pulled from store shelves on October the 2nd. Meanwhile, the search for suspects has spread all over the map.
Investigators now say they're not optimistic that this drugstore photograph, today being studied by NASA, the space agency, will ever confirm whether or not this man is James Lewis, the fugitive suspect. The poor quality photo had been the best potential piece of evidence that Lewis could have been in the store when Paula Prince bought the poisoned Tylenol that killed her. Still, these photographs of Lewis, bearded and clean-shaven, are plaguing police across the country with reported sightings of the suspect. In Lewis's hometown of Carl Junction, Missouri late yesterday, police rushed to hear Pam Griffberg say she had Lewis in her beauty shop chair wanting his hair dyed and curled. She said she asked the stranger what he thought of the Tylenol man.
He didn't want me to do his hair. He didn't want anything. He just wanted out. He wanted to go. And he went flying out the door. He left his glasses. He had to come back in after his glasses. And when he left, he took off running just as fast as he could go, and he jumped in his car, and he left.
But elsewhere, incidents have given the manhunt the appearance of a Keystone Cops affair. In Boston last night, this woman was picked up because she resembled Lewis's wife. On Interstate 90, police in 3 states were alerted after the Lewis car was reported westbound out of Buffalo, New York. But that wasn't true either. And this couple in New York City were picked up and released because the pair looked like the wanted pair. Investigators also differ about Lewis being a prime suspect or no suspect at all. And Bob McNamara, CBS News, Chicago.
And late this afternoon, police discounted the beauty parlor episode, saying the man involved turned himself in, saying it was all a hoax. Well, as you know, we have a question for you this evening on Newsday, and the question very simply is this: was the time allowed the Prime Minister on the CBC well spent? We invite you to phone 469-2321 with your answer, be it yes or no. We would remind you, however, that we will only be taking calls until 7 o'clock. So you've got about 50 minutes to get your reply into that question. We'll be back with more stories on Newsday in a couple of minutes' time. Stay with us. Well, Premier Loheed has announced the latest, and he says the last in his list of campaign giveaways. This one is for widows and a few widowers and will cost $20 million a year. Newsday's Harry Nuttall has this report.
The Widows program is in 3 parts. First, an income security plan that will pay up to $590 a month to those between 55 and 64 who need it. An estimated 4,200 widows and about 600 widowers would qualify. Secondly, health benefits that would eliminate their Medicare premiums and would pay 80% of their prescription drug costs. And thirdly, the Senior Citizens Home Improvement grants of up to $3,000 would be extended to widows between 55 and 64. The Premier said this would be his last platform promise with a financial commitment. And he estimated the total cost of his promises so far since October 5th as $160 million a year.
It amounts to about 3% of the current provincial operating budget. 3%, and I just wanted to make one adjustment to the first news conference. It is not intended that any of these programs, if we're elected, would be financed through the Heritage Savings Trust Fund.
For 4 years, that comes to $640 million. Last night, we calculated his campaign promise costs as $1.75 billion over 4 years. And the difference, of course, is where you start. We started in September, he started in October, and he says the others were not campaign goodies but were programs in place. In any event, if the widows have now been taken care of, can the orphans be far behind? We don't know, but the Premier did say that he would do something about a children's hospital in Edmonton when and if the Edmonton Hospitals Committee brings down its recommendations. He added that he's enjoying the campaign, and he speculated on his life after politics.
You know, I'm enjoying the campaign. I really am. I feel good, and I've been in a training program for about 3 months. I just feel good about it. In terms of the after, I'll stay with what I said on October the 5th, teaching or journalism.
Final question, Rob.
And if some of you folks decide to run for office, I'm going to look forward to being at a news conference.
Alberta's New Democratic Party leader Grant Notley says if elected, his party would cut property taxes by 30 to 40% and spend $700 million on light rail transit in Calgary and Edmonton. At a rally last night in Calgary, Notley said property taxes would be reduced by paying all but 10% of educational costs through provincial funding. Conservative incumbent Julian Koziak received a fairly warm reception at the University of Alberta campus in Edmonton today. The students' reaction is particularly important in the Strathcona riding, where the margin of victory was only a few hundred votes last time. This time, many more students are expected to vote, and so their support could be the difference in the race. Newsday's Howard Gould reports.
At the NDP campaign headquarters in Strathcona, workers are getting ready for what is essentially a rematch. Their candidate, Gordon Wright, is trying for a 5th time to get elected in the riding. The last election ended with a lawsuit, Wright unsuccessfully claiming in court that students at the University of Alberta, which is in the riding, hadn't been properly enumerated, and since there was no polling station on campus, that he lost votes. The election was close. 650 more votes would have won it for him. This time around, the students in the residences have been enumerated, and come election day there will be a poll on campus. The theory is that that will mean more students will vote. The assumption is that that will translate into a lot of votes for the NDP. That assumption got one of its first tests today. Today, the Conservative incumbent, Consumer and Corporate Affairs Minister Julian Koziak, made an appearance on campus looking for what some think will be the crucial student votes that could swing the election to him. The other three candidates, representing the Western Canada Concept, the Alberta Reform Movement, and the Communist Party, aren't considered to be a factor. At first, it seemed the students were all against Koziak as questioner after questioner attacked the government.
Your program does nothing for renters, does nothing for working poor, does nothing for people earning under $20,000, does nothing for Native people. It only benefits an upper middle class group.
This government is not one that a lot of people feel can be trusted.
I'd like to know why the Loheed team is taking the approach they won't debate.
But as the session came to a close, one student thanked Koziak for his help in solving a problem in her high school back when Koziak was education minister. That brought on a very different reaction.
And I just wanted to bring up that little point.
Thank you.
Back over at NDP campaign headquarters, they aren't expecting the student votes to be handed to them.
I think that the fallacy that young people support a radical political movement is not true. My experience, it's usually the young people vote in the same manner as their parents.
And the NDP in Strathcona think the parents are split. Nash predicts an even closer vote than last time, a difference of only 200 or 300 votes. Havard Gould, CBC News, Edmonton.
Alberta Liberal leader Nick Taylor has decided that he will move his family to the Barrhead constituency if he is elected to represent that riding. Taylor made the announcement at an Edmonton news conference this morning.
The Liberal Party leader says that he is now in a position to move to Barrhead because his family has grown up, and buying a farm inside of his own constituency would be a fine idea. Taylor was reacting to a question at his news conference this morning. When asked about his visibility in the riding, Taylor promised not only to move there, but to open 2 offices so that everyone would have easy access to him. Taylor called the news conference to outline his party's concern for farmers' rights. Taylor claims that the present government has refused to protect the surface rights of farm owners, and that it has not acted to challenge the convenience of utility and oil companies because of its own indirect involvement with companies like Alberta Energy. Taylor's concern for surface rights is similar to that expressed by the WCC only yesterday. The difference, he says, is that the Liberals would protect Alberta farmland with laws, not guns. Steve Andrusiak, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, every candidate's campaign includes a few set speeches and a lot of handshaking, but every now and then somebody tries something different to make a point. And Newsday's Havard Gould has a report.
Edmonton Avonmore NDP candidate Kathy Wright took to the air today in a campaign balloon. She called it a hunt for Horst, a reference to incumbent Tory Horst Schmidt, who, according to Wright, is ducking a debate with her, not even returning her calls.
Streets. So we thought that maybe this morning we'd try to find him and see exactly where he is out on those streets.
Are you going to find him?
Well, we're certainly going to do our very best, but we haven't succeeded in the past 2 weeks, and I doubt whether we're going to succeed this morning either.
Of course, the media were invited to show up for the flight. It was a media event. But the problem with media events is that when something goes wrong, the cameras are right there and rolling. At first, everything went fine this morning. With everyone aboard, it looked like the balloon was ready to go. Then, someone noticed a cable or two inside the balloon were crossed. Repairs had to be made, and while they were fixing the cables, it wasn't a serious problem. After a slight delay, everything was ready again, and takeoff time rolled around once more. This time, no troubles. The balloon rose, powered, according to NDP candidate Wright, by the hot air from Tory promises. Havard Gould, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, there are days and there are days. The baseball season is finally over. And to bring us a final word on it, here's Bruce Winters. Bruce.
Thank you, Alec. Wrong again. That's about the only way that I can describe how the World Series wrapped up. St. Louis won with great speed on defense and also some pretty good hitting. And that touched off a day of celebration in St. Louis today.
At first, the plot centered around the two main characters as Andujar and Vukovic pitched scoreless baseball through 3.5 innings. Then, in the bottom of the fourth, Willie McGee singled up the middle. Like a deer frozen by the headlights of national TV, he hesitated, then bolted as Tommy Herr singled to right. McGee then scored on Lonnie Smith's infield hit, and it was 1-0. That lead was short-lived, though. Milwaukee's Ben Ogilvie homered in the 5th, and in the 6th, the Brewers scored 2 more on a throwing error by Andujar and a Cecil Cooper sacrifice fly. Cardinal manager Whitey Herzog winced, and the hometown fans grew silent. Silent, that is, until Keith Hernandez came to bat with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 6th. True to any good script, an ironic twist was added to the storyline in the appearance of Milwaukee relief pitcher Bob McClure. Once high school teammates, both men now found themselves on the opposite ends of an athletic battlefield. For McClure, it was to be a bitter reunion as Hernandez lined a base hit to score 2 runs and tie the score at 3 apiece. Whitey Herzog couldn't wait to taste victory. Harvey Keene couldn't bear to face defeat. George Hendrick followed with a single to right, and the eventual winning run scored. It was 4-3 Cardinals with more security on the way. In the 8th, St. Louis made it 6-3 on hits by Darrell Porter and Steve Braun. And with Bruce Sutter in command, the Cardinals then proceeded to close the book on baseball 1982. Feelings kept on ice for 15 years thawed quickly in the locker room.
It was fun. I tell you, it was the most fun I've had playing baseball in my whole career. No question about it.
Congratulations on being named MVP.
Thanks. That's just so wonderful. I can't believe it.
We showed the world, you know, that the contrast in ball clubs has no bearing on who is the better team.
It was just fun seeing all the players and everything. I had a lot of fun, especially being out of school.
And I think that sums it up pretty well. We'll be back with a look at the Oilers and the Bruins when they play a little bit later tonight. Alec, that's it for Top Sports.
That's what I like about baseball. They have a semifinals and a finals all over. Not like hockey, goes on for 2 months.
Yeah, but they play 162 games.
That's right. We have a question for you this Newsday, and I'll repeat it for you. Was the time allowed the Prime Minister on the CBC well spent? We'd like to hear from you. Yes or no? Phone 469-2321. We have people taking your calls in the newsroom, and we will be doing that until 7 o'clock. That's the cutoff time, so hurry up and get your reply in. We have much more coming up for you this Newsday. Social workers join the denunciation of the Alberta government for the new Work for Welfare program, and John Robarts is buried in Toronto. And we also, of course, have Larry Branter with the weather. We'll be back in 2 minutes' time. Now we go to the weather board and Larry Branter.
Okay, Alec, a pretty busy show tonight, so we'll go straight to the satellite map and show you what we have. We still have a low-pressure system. Actually, it's a really well-defined low-pressure system in the Gulf of Alaska. You can't quite see it all there, but you can see the edge of the cloud that's associated with it. We have another low-pressure system down just off the coast of BC. What will happen is this one will curl up and join that one at the same time, kick off an upper level disturbance. And that's been what's been happening the past couple of days. The morning starts off sunny and clear and most of the day, then toward evening the cloud from one of these disturbances comes through the region and gives us that high cloud with no precipitation. As you can see, that cloud from the latest disturbance is just coming into the province and is now starting to be seen over the city of Edmonton. And these other little patches that we can show you of white on the map, that is snow cover.